this is Anuja Raj from the PG Department of English, Naipunya School of Management, Cherthala. Today I am going to tell you about practical criticism. In the earlier session, we had learned about criticism as well as who is a critic. Now we are going to the practical criticism directly because practical criticism is something that came in the 20th century. It came as a reference with I.A. Richards. Now going to it in detail, you can see that contents of the video class consist of Richards and practical criticism, poetry and synesthesia, scientific and emotive use of language, and the 4 kinds of meaning. Practical criticism. It is an analytical approach to literary criticism which was first developed by I.A. Richards, in which literary texts are viewed as autonomous and isolated from any literary, historical or biographical context, subjected to close reading. It does not mean that you should have to close the reading, it means that you should come closer to read. So it is always a practical criticism is always a renaissance approach in literary criticism. You can see that the 20th century liberated every critic from understanding a work based on biography, history as well as economical approach. So here a text is always judged as a practical concept or an autonomous concept. It is a landmark of the 20th century criticism and provided new standards and new technologies for examining literature. It dismissed the study of a text based on the history, morality, or any other purpose outside it. It paved way to the 20th century criticism, and it is also known as new criticism. Now, practical criticism. Practical criticism tends to demythologize a certain unknown text and make the readers infer their own meaning on it based on their skills and knowledge. Now about I.A. Richards, I would like to say that I.A. Richards is a prominent critic and he proposed the practical criticism. You all might be wondering how I.A. Richards innovated this practical criticism. He took into consideration 30 poems which he took into his classroom at the University of Cambridge, and there he gave all these 30 poems to his students. These poems were anonymous and the people did not understand who wrote it. Therefore, the people started analyzing these poems on the basis of how they understood the poems. So here you can see that he invented practical criticism as a mode of understanding a text based on the text itself. There is no other junctions, there is no other hinges that is attached to it. Going to Ivor Armstrong Richards, he was an English educator, literary critic and rhetorician. His work contributed to the foundations of new criticism, which was a formalistic moment in literary theory and emphasized the close reading of a literary text. Especially, he included poetry in an effort to discover how a work of literature functions as a self-contained and self-referential aesthetic object. So you can see that from practical criticism onwards, any literary work was taken as a text. It is always described as a text, whether you study feministic approach, whether you study post-colonialistic approach, everything that is written is an autonomous entity which is called as a text. Practical criticism is a book that was written in 1929 and that paved way to a new mode of analyzing and interpreting literature. Here he says that there are 4 kinds of meaning in a text. The first one is sense. What the speaker or author speaks is the sense. The thing that the writer literally conveys is the sense. Here the speaker speaks to arouse the reader's thought and the language is very straightforward, which is descriptive. This language is not poetic and the words are used to describe the hearer's attraction on state affairs or to excite them. Sense is whatness of language use. Going to the next concept, it is feeling. Feeling is writer's emotional attitude towards the subject. It means writer's attachment or detachment to the subject is the feeling. It is an expression. The speaker or writer uses his views in expressing the emotions. This very language is emotive, poetic and literary also. Here only rhyme and meter cannot make poetry, but emotion is equally important. Especially in lyrical poem, you can see that emotions play a very vital role. Next concept is tone. Tone refers to the attitude of the speaker towards his listener. There is a kind of relation between the speaker and the listener, and since the speaker is aware of his relationship with the language and with the listener, he changes the level of words as the level of audience changes. Here you can see that your tone of talking with your teacher is quite different from the tone that you use to talk with your friends. So here it means that the tone varies from listener to listener. The fourth concept is intention. Intention is the purpose of a speaker. The speaker has certain aim to speak, either it is consciously or unconsciously. Listener has to understand the speaker's purpose to understand his meaning. If the audience can't understand his purpose, the speaker becomes unsuccessful. The intention of the author can be found in dramatic as well as in semi-dramatic literature. Here you can see that these four kinds of meaning in totality constitute the total meaning of the text. Therefore, all utterances can be looked at from four different points of view, revealing the four kinds of meaning which are not easily separated from each other, but they are indispensable for explaining certain context. Basically, the four meanings are interconnected in poetry. Now, the next concept that I.A. Richards has put forward in his practical criticism is synesthesia and poetry. Synesthesia is the term that is used in literature when one sense is used to describe another sense. That means two senses come together alike. This is a form of simile or a metaphor where you use different senses to create an interesting picture in the reader's mind. So here you can see that as you read any text, a pictorial representation of that particular reading comes into your mind. So here, in using synesthesia, the poet intends to make use of two different senses within the mind of the reader, and this always makes the reader have a deep knowledge and understanding of what the writer has written. Example, the silence was as thick as forest. How can the silence be as thick as the forest? Here you can have an auditory sense, which is the silence. As thick as the forest represents a view about the forest. Now Dante in the Divine Comedy writes, back to the region where the sun is silent. Back to the region, the person is walking, and where the sun is silent, sun cannot be silent because sun is represented visually and silence is an auditory response. So here you can see that it gives or invokes different senses. Writers employ this device to be creative in communicating their ideas to the readers. It makes their ideas more vivid and adds more layers of meaning to a text for the reader's pleasure. By blending different senses, writers make their works more interesting and appealing. Now we are going to the scientific and emotive use of language. Usually you can see that everybody detests literature because it invokes a lot of emotions and it is not representing any facts. So here we are going to study about the scientific and the emotive use of language in poetry. In the referential or scientific, the word faithfully recalls the object. In the emotive sense, it means emotions. The emotive use of language is of course used in poetry, and in the scientific use of language there are references which the person can feel that he himself was present there. This can be best exemplified when you see about Robinson Crusoe. The work says about the different facts and incidents that happens in the life of Robinson Crusoe. And this in fact invokes the reader to understand the real facts that are represented here. The happy ending to King Lear cannot be accepted because you can see that it is a tragedy. Towards the end, everybody is dying. So here you can see that scientific and emotive use of language is used well in literature. Concluding, I would like to say that practical criticism paved way to new modes of criticism in the 20th century, and it can be seen as a revelation in the field of literary criticism. Therefore, you can see that practical criticism paved way to new criticism. Later, it went to post-structuralism, structuralism, deconstruction, post-colonialism, feminism, and so on. And now the studies have finished in memory studies, trauma studies, and also on different aspects of understanding the multidisciplinary level that a literature can have in medical humanities. Thank you.